Main event of the evening.
These days are
Hello and welcome to These Days Are Ours, a Happy Days podcast. I'm Peter.
And I'm Joe.
And today we are discussing the 8th episode of the final season of Happy Days, Arthur.
Okay, Peter, tell us what happens in Arthur.
Fonzie arrives at the Cunningham house in a tizzy because some guy in a three-piece suit followed him home.
You want me to get rid of him, Fonz? I've had a lot of experience with salesmen down at the store.
Assuming he's some salesman, Fonzie answers the door and shuts it in his face when he asks if he is Arthur Fonzarelli. At Joni's behest, he's probably just some kid working his way through college. Fonzie opens the door, only to shut it again when the stranger says he's his brother.
That's the old "I'm your brother, give me some money" scam.
He reluctantly opens it again, only to squeeze it around his neck. His so-called brother explains Fonzie's father married his mother after leaving Fonzie's mother. Fonzie doesn't much want to talk about his father, and refuses to believe him, even when his supposed sibling mentions the Fonzarelli crest, a falcon flying over a field of oregano. But he turns out to know the Fonzarelli lullaby.
May sweet dreams caress you till morning's first light.
And Fonzie realizes he's telling the truth. He embraces his brother, Artie, for the first time.
What do I got here? I got my brother here. This is my brother.
At Arnold's, Artie tells Fonzie and Chachi he's in school to be a coroner. He likes working with people. Fonzie has set up a double date for them with the Lovejoy sisters, Marlene and Darlene, who turn out to be a pair of identical blondes in nurse uniforms.
Are we really the first to go out with the Fonzarelli brothers?
Yeah, you'll get your commemorative plaques later.
They ask Artie what he does for fun. He breeds tropical fish. Chachi brings them 4 Arnold burgers, and Artie asks for a salad instead. He's a vegetarian.
And I don't eat meat, because I'm a veterinarian.
Oh, boy.
The Lovejoys excuse themselves to freshen up. Well, Darlene does, and drags along Marlene.
No, I don't have to go freshen up. We're twins. If I do, you do.
Artie tries to bring up their father, but Fonzie refuses to hear it. When the Lovejoys come back out, both of them claim to be Marlene, to date Fonzie. The date is ended early, and Fonzie and Artie try to find something they'll both enjoy. Artie isn't much for bikes, and Fonzie doesn't dig foreign movies that aren't Godzilla. They end up just going back to Fonzie's apartment. He'll toss Artie a salad, and maybe he'll partake in some fried tropical fish. That night, Fonzie goes downstairs to make himself a milkshake, something Artie wouldn't take part in because he doesn't ingest sugar. He wakes up Howard in the process, and they share a milkshake.
I drink your milkshake.
And Fonzie ends up admitting to Howard that he and Artie don't get along.
I'll tell you something, Mr. C. I discovered something very interesting about my brother.
What's that?
I hate him.
Fonzie wanted a brother all his life, and it's someone who he has nothing in common with. It's not that he hates Artie, he has no feelings for him at all. Artie comes downstairs. He's taking a flight back home, and he's leaving early to get a seat next to the emergency exit.
Of course, you can never be too careful, huh?
He called a cab, so Fonzie doesn't have to drive him. Before he leaves, he finally manages to tell Fonzie what he's been trying to tell him this whole time. Their father is dead.
In my book, the man is dead.
He is.
He died 2 weeks ago. He left Fonzie a watch, which Fonzie doesn't want.
2 hours later.
Howard goes to the bathroom, only to find Fonzie already there.
Hi, Mr. C.
Fonz, it's you.
Yeah, well, who'd you expect?
The noise Howard makes wakes up Marion and Joni, and Fonzie tells the 3 of them that Artie's father died. Marion tries to comfort him, since that was his father too. Fonzie admits that now he can't be angry anymore, because he went and died, and now he's left with so many questions about the father he never knew. Did he believe in God? What was his favorite ice cream flavor? Was he allowed to everyone or just his family? Howard says there's someone who can answer those questions. Fonzie protests that they have nothing in common, but Marion says they do now. Fonzie catches up with Artie at the airport and asks how their father died.
Fonz, what are you doing here?
It's something I gotta know. So let's get right to it, alright?
He was on a ship and some rigging knocked him off. Artie admits that he only saw their father a few times a year. When he was at Little League, he never got to look up and see his father. Fonzie admits that he once paid a bum $25 to take him to a father-son picnic.
The creep ate my sandwich.
Their father only ever gave him one present, a kimono, and he didn't tell Fonzie who he was. Artie knew about that. Their father agonized over it and how to give it, and he didn't say who he was because he didn't feel part of Fonzie's life.
He didn't feel like he was any part of it. He was my father.
Artie tries to give him the watch again, and Fonzie says their father left him better than a watch. He left a brother. The 2 of them make plans to spend next Christmas together, hug, and say goodbye. Fonzie reads the inscription on the watch, where his father says he loves him. At Arnold's the next day, Fonzie shows off the watch to Joni and Chachi. Turns out the watch is broken. Like Fonzie's father, it's unreliable.
Fonz, give me. I'll get it fixed for you.
No! I want to remember him just the way he was.
Fonzie's not too upset to leave with the Lovejoy sisters, though.
Thank you, Peter. That was Arthur, Arthur. It first aired back on December 6th, 1983. Happy Days followed a new episode of Just Our Luck in which Shabu sets out to prove he can get a woman without using magic and soon finds himself engaged to a beautiful woman. This week, Happy Days improved significantly on the lead-in from Just Our Luck.
Well, doesn't that make you feel dandy?
CBS had a rerun of The Mississippi and still managed to beat ABC for the 8 o'clock hour. And NBC yet again dominated with a new episode of The A-Team, in which the team tries to stop a corrupt small-town sheriff and puts face on the ballot against him. So, Peter, of those three choices, what are you watching?
I'm watching The A-Team, obviously.
This isn't even a competition this week, so yeah, I've got to watch face run against a corrupt small-town sheriff. Arthur, Arthur was directed by Jerry Paris, and it was written by the team of Mark Flanagan and Craig Heller. This was their only Happy Days script. Mark is a very prolific TV writer-producer from Hartford, Connecticut, who was at the beginning of his career when he did Happy Days. He went on to work on such shows as Anything But Love, Phenom, Grace Under Fire, Joan of Arcadia, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Suddenly Susan, High Society, and Murphy Brown, but he's best known for his work with Tracy Ullman. He's been a writer-producer on The Tracy Ullman Show, Tracy Takes on New York, and Tracy Ullman in The Trailer Tales. He's made a handful of acting cameos, mostly on the sitcoms that he's written for, but he supposedly turns up in Ron Howard's Night Shift, if you want to go looking for him. Craig Heller continued to write for TV until the early 2000s. His other credits include the sitcom Mr. President and the soap operas General Hospital and As the World Turns, plus the TV movies Return to Green Acres and Jailbirds. He was also a writer and story editor on Full House, which was produced by Miller Milkus Boyette, the same company behind Happy Days. Let's move on to guest stars now. We'll start with Michael Holden as Artie Fonzarelli.
Some people, the ingestion of meats can cause fatty deposits to form in the arteries, creating pustules.
Michael was also at the beginning of his career when he did this episode. He went on to work in TV and film until the 2010s. He turned up on such TV series as Hooperman, Throb, Automan, Beauty and the Beast,
Freddy's Nightmares, Matlock, Cheers, The Famous Teddy Z,
Melrose Place, Lois and Clark, The Practice, Home Improvement, Time Cop, Chicago Hope, Martial Law 24, The West Wing, NYPD Blue, CSI, NCIS, The Mentalist, and much more.
His movies include The Green Hornet and Paparazzi. Peter, what did you think of Michael Holden as Artie Fonzarelli?
Artie Fonzarelli is very much in the mold of Richie and Roger in that he's the square, nerdy counterpart to Fonzie. And I like that he manages to feel distinct from both of those characters, in large part because there's almost a slight hippie undercurrent to him, namely in the fact that he is a vegetarian who also doesn't eat sugar.
I only eat good sea salt, white sugar don't touch my lips, and my friends is always begging me to take them on macrobiotic trips. Yes, they are.
And I like the fact that he's able to joke about wanting to be a coroner because he likes working with people. I found Holden's performance to be enjoyably low-key, so yeah, I liked him.
Michael Holden does a very nice job with this subdued, understated character. Interestingly, when I screened this episode for the first time, I had forgotten it from the original run of Happy Days, so I didn't know how it turned out. And when he said he was not interested in the Lovejoy twins, I thought the story was going to go in a very different direction. I thought the revelation was going to be that Artie Fonzarelli was gay.
And this episode would be about Fonzie coming to terms with that. Oh man, I kind of wish they had done that.
It reminded me a bit of an episode of The Golden Girls in which Blanche Devereaux finds out her brother is gay and has to deal with that.
Will you tell me why you want to put yourself and Doug through this? You know how people can be.
And if my own sister can't accept our relationship, what chance would I have with anyone else, right?
Right. No!
But then I realized for Fonzie to work his way through his feelings about this, that would have taken a two-parter, and I didn't think this was a two-parter, so it had to be something more simple, like their dad died.
The simplicity of the death of a loved one.
We also have Randy and Candy Bruff as Darlene and Marlene Lovejoy.
Fonzie's my date. I'm Marlene. Prove it!
They played very similar characters in the episode Richie's Job from season 7. The Bruffs are real-life twin sisters from Indianapolis who worked mainly in television from the late 1970s to the late 1990s. They were regulars on BJ and the Bear as Terry and Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry!
Their other TV credits include Fantasy Island, Taxi, Dukes of Hazzard, Night Court, Quantum Leap, and Tales from the Crypt. Their movies include The Happy Hooker Goes to Washington and the Steve Martin movie The Lonely Guy. They were also Doublemint twins in a Wrigley's Doublemint gum commercial.
Doublemint? Trying to double your fun, eh, Bart?
Well, I'll double your detention.
Peter, what did you think of Randy and Candy Bruff as the Lovejoy twins?
I like the subtle seeds of discord between them, namely the fact that one of them is very willing to use the fact that they are identical to make her sister do what she wants to do. And then she's just going to throw her sister under the bus because she'd rather get with her sister's date than her own.
There is an interesting dynamic to the Lovejoy twins where one sister does seem to be dominating or manipulating the other into doing what she wants. We don't really get a whole lot of time to explore that dynamic, but I think Randy and Candy Bruff are quite funny in the few moments of screen time that they have on Happy Days. Finally, we have Jay Lomack as the attendant.
I don't even know who the hell you are.
Presumably the man behind the counter at Sentinel Airlines. Jay's other TV credits include 8 is Enough, The Powers of Matthew Starr, and Miami Vice. I'm only mentioning him because he's named specifically in the credits. Peter, did you even notice the attendant at the airport?
I did not. Sorry, Jay.
What must have happened is that the attendant had lines and then it was cut in the editing and they'd already made the credits by then. So,
but hey, get that bread, King.
Yes. Well, now he gets royalties and everything. As for songs this week, Michael Holden and Henry Winkler sing their own special version of Rockabye Baby, aka Hushabye Baby, a traditional English nursery rhyme and lullaby that dates back to the 1700s. The original poem has been sung to a few different melodies. The Fonzarellis are singing the version that's best known in the United States. Peter, what did you think of the Fonzarelli lullaby that we hear in this episode?
Surprisingly violent in its own way.
Your strong little muscles must fight the good fight.
Though I guess Rockabye Baby is already pretty violent, with the cradle falling out of the tree with the baby in it.
I remember when they did a parody of that song on The Simpsons. Marge is singing that to Maggie, and Maggie is imagining herself in the song, in the cradle, falling out of the tree, and she's terrified.
When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby cradle and all.
At Arnold's, during the scene with Fonzie, Artie, and the twins, we hear instrumental versions of Heat Wave by Martha and the Vandellas, Baby I'm Yours by Barbara Lewis, and What Did I Say by Ray Charles. And during the tag at Arnold's, we hear My Girl by The Temptations. This was released in December 1964 and became a hit in 1965, so it's possible we're in 1965 now. Or Arnold's gets the first recordings from Motown. Maybe Berry Gordy sends them to Fonzie first?
Maybe, yeah. There could be a whole story in that.
As for cultural and historical references this week, there was a very obscure 1969 comedy called Arthur, Arthur, starring Shelley Winters, Donald Pleasance, Terry Thomas, and Tammy Grimes.
Look, how about you and I getting into partnership? Then you could take a 50% interest in Whitegclear, eh? We need a slogan. What about Whitegclear forever? Brilliant!
But I'm guessing the makers of Happy Days were thinking of the 1982 comedy drama Author, Author, with Al Pacino as a stressed-out Broadway playwright trying to balance work and family.
I had a lousy day today. I've turned 42. I fired a director. I beat my kids. I forgot to beat my kids.
The cast includes Tuesday Weld, Diane Cannon, and the comedy team of Bob and Ray. Peter, were you familiar with Author, Author at all?
Not firsthand. I found out about it because it was reviewed on Siskel and Ebert, and I've been making my way through the entirety of their back catalog. They did not like it. 2 thumbs down.
They throw in names like Elaine's and Norman Mailer to try to make this script sound at least a little contemporary, but this movie is basically just a tired old plot, a recycled situation comedy.
I also learned about another Al Pacino bomb that I hadn't heard of before, where he played a guy during the American Revolution with the incongruously Anglo name of Tom Dobb.
Al Pacino as Tom Dobb. That is spot-on casting.
All these men here, we all fought for something. You take it from us, and we're going to fight again.
Artie says he's studying to be a coroner. That's a long path.
Oh yeah? Like, that's a long gig.
The requirements vary from place to place, but a majority of localities require coroners to hold a medical license and be physicians. Other requirements may include
a bachelor's degree in criminology, medicine, forensic science, or some other related field, the successful completion of medical school,
a physician's license, certification in forensic pathology, and prior work experience in medicine.
So Artie has a long road ahead of him. Fonzie says he and Artie can jump the Eagle River.
I'll get you a bike and we'll jump the Eagle River.
No, I don't do that.
He's referring to a real place in Wisconsin that's a popular destination for tourists and retirees, but it's a long drive from Milwaukee. Eagle River is on the northern border of Wisconsin, near the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's about 4 hours due north from Milwaukee, so that means a 4-hour drive there. They jump the river, and it's a 4-hour drive back, so they're probably not going to Eagle River. What do you think, Peter?
No wonder Artie doesn't want to do that, but also, hey, good on the writers for coming up with a Wisconsin-specific reference, even if it's one that's maybe a little bit awkward for Milwaukee specifically.
When Artie mentions foreign movies, Fonzie says he likes Godzilla.
You like foreign movies? Yeah, Godzilla.
The large and destructive prehistoric monster debuted in the 1954 Japanese classic Gojira, directed by Ishiro Honda. That film was dubbed into English and renamed Godzilla King of the Monsters in 1956, with some new scenes featuring Canadian actor Raymond Burr. So the version that Fonzie probably saw was the bastardized American version. The climax of this episode takes place at the airport, presumably Mitchell International Airport, then called Mitchell Field, just south of downtown Milwaukee. That lounge area we see is very 1980s with those reddish-orange plastic chairs.
These hard plastic chairs are so comfortable.
And not like actual 1960s airport lounges at all. I thought it would have been a nice touch if they'd made a convincing 1960s airport lounge.
This is one of those cases where Happy Days' pretensions at being a period piece is kind of collapsing.
It was kind of sad, though, because airport lounges used to actually be kind of cool. Now they're much more utilitarian. By the way, Sentinel Airlines is fictional. Aww. In real life, it looks like Gate 12 at Mitchell Airport is used by United. Other observations this week: wouldn't taking someone else's groceries qualify as theft?
Well, Howard, we've got someone else's groceries.
So that's why the bag boy was chasing our car.
I thought he wanted a tip.
I think the Cunninghams need to get back to that store as soon as possible. What do you think, Peter?
What if they have something that they really need in those groceries? Howard?
I felt bad because one time at a train station, I took a suitcase that looked identical to mine.
Oh,
so
no.
Not only did I lose my suitcase, but I got somebody else's suitcase. I took it back to Amtrak, but I don't know if the person ever got it.
That's like the start of a Hitchcock movie.
We get some Fonzie malapropisms this week, including dancing on pins and needles.
Hey, I'm dancing on pins and needles, huh?
And talk until you're blue under the collar. Any of these Fonzie malaprop jokes doing anything for you, Peter?
Not really, no.
How are you liking all these nautical puns?
Well, not bad.
Somewhat entertaining.
Artie is remarkably patient and gentle in this episode, considering how badly Fonzie treats him from the beginning, and continues to treat him throughout the episode. I timed it. I think Fonzie is nice to Artie for about 3 minutes total in this episode.
I do think it makes a kind of sense because Fonzie has wanted someone like Artie in his life for a long time, like Fonzie has said, but he's also a representative of the father who abandoned Fonzie and was never really part of his life except by his absence. And as Fonzie says, he and Artie have nothing in common. So he would not know how to treat Artie, with also the subtext that maybe he doesn't want to treat him better because of the fact that just by being there, Artie is making all of these painful memories present.
Some of it felt a little unfair. Like at Arnold's, Fonzie turns on Artie for basically no reason.
Yeah, no, Fonzie is being very unreasonable.
But Artie is remarkably nice through all of it, so good on you, Artie.
He's just waiting to spring this incredibly traumatic news onto Fonzie, so he's probably trying to be polite for that reason.
Yeah, good point. And someday I will stop pointing this out, but Howard's easy chair and footstool are back this week. I think they've been gone all this season. And thank you, Fonzie, for reminding Artie to shut the door.
Hey, do me a favor on the way out. Shut the door.
I hate when they leave the front door open at the Cunningham house.
You want to close the door? You're letting out all of the coldness I saved overnight.
As if they're on a soundstage and it's not a real house at all.
But they don't have to worry about bugs.
Peter, were there any outstanding Happy Days fashions in Arthur?
So were the Lovejoys directly coming from a job at a hospital or something, or do they just wear the nurse uniforms for fun?
I think it's the latter. I think this is some kind of fetish thing because a lot of guys have a thing about nurses and they're wearing sexy Halloween costumes.
The uniforms are slightly pink, which I don't think is necessarily accurate to 1960s Wisconsin hospitals.
Probably not, no. I don't know if the nurse fetish is still around. I don't think that's...
It's still around, but let's leave it at that.
Somebody's into it somewhere. So, Peter, did you have any other observations you wanted to make? about Arthur.
So not only did Fonzie's father abandon him as a child, then he had another child and also named that child Arthur.
What's my brother's name? Arthur. Why? That's my name.
What was going through his mind? Did he figure, okay, I messed up with the first Arthur, I can get it right this time with a second Arthur? Did he forget that he already had a son named Arthur? Or was Arthur just a name that his wife had her heart set on and he didn't stop her by mentioning, oh yeah, Arthur was the name of my kid from my first marriage that I abandoned?
I think it was that Vito Fonzarelli saw this new family as a second chance, a chance to start over and do it over again. And naming the second kid Arthur was a symbol of that. Okay, this time I'm going to do it right. Or maybe somebody in that family was very into Arthurian legend. Who knows? Some people are. You know, it's a possibility. Have they ever done a King Arthur joke in all 11 seasons of Happy Days?
Oh, God. I don't think so. I would remember that.
Maybe it didn't occur to them in 255 episodes to do that.
Somehow.
So, Peter, I will ask that age-old timeless question. Was this episode any good?
Yeah, even if Fonzie is a big jerk for most of it, I think it's also an effective character study. I like the dynamic they start to set up between Fonzie and Artie, and I kind of wish that we had gotten more chances to have Artie come back, which we won't because this is the final season. I like the way that this kind of wraps up Fonzie's ongoing issues with his father.
This did give us some closure on the relationship between Fonzie and his father. This is not one of the more fun episodes of Happy Days. This is a more downbeat and serious episode, but I think it was necessary. And you're right, there is an interesting dynamic between Fonzie and Artie that we will not get to explore because obviously the show is ending. So it's not like Artie's going to become part of the show.
Which means that we're never going to have Artie and Roger meet. We're never going to have the moment where Fonzie realizes that his long-lost brother and his kind of sort of frenemy get along better than he does with either of them.
That could have been an amusing scene. Overall, I think it is an interesting episode. It's one that Happy Days fans should definitely see because this is a huge milestone in Fonzie's life. Yeah, I would definitely recommend Arthur. So, Peter, how can people keep up with us and find out about all the wonderful things we are doing?
Listeners can follow me on Blue Sky at petervolfranc.bsky.social.
And they can follow me on Blue Sky at joeblevins.bsky.social. They can find this podcast online at thesedaysaroours.libsyn.com, and they can email us with questions, comments, and concerns at thesedaysaroourspodcast@gmail.com. So, Peter, what do we have on the docket for next week?
Next week, Howard hires Fonzie's students at Patton to build a second bathroom for the house. In You Get What You Pay For.
Sounds like a very tense episode indeed. So, see you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile.
I got my brother here. This is my brother.